The Padres and Dodgers are set to face for the final time this season with a three-game series coming up at Petco Park. We are here to break it down in full. I'm Kyle Glaser. Welcome into another edition of Friar Territory. We are pleased to be joined by special guest Clint Pasillas, co-host with Alana Rizzo of Dodgers Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. Clint has been kind enough to have me on his show many times. I was way overdue to return the favor. Clint, welcome. It's great to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining.
No, appreciate being here, Kyle. Always happy talking baseball with you in general. And now we get to flip the script a little bit, talk more Padres and Dodgers, even though we always make you talk way too much Padres on our show. So happy to do whatever, navigate through whatever the next half hour-ish takes us.
Absolutely. Should be a great series, and we have a lot to talk about. Before we dive into it, I want to remind everyone, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like button here on YouTube, rate us 5 stars, leave comments, all the good stuff. We have a lot of great stuff coming here as we hit the stretch run. And of course, do the same for Clint and Alana over at Dodger Territory. Even if you're a Padres fan, they do a great job, and there is a ton of great information and great interviews to be gleaned from it. So think of it as competitive intelligence. Go ahead and subscribe all across the Foul Territory Network. All right, Clint, last time these two teams faced, the Padres were coming in red hot, having won 14 of 17, and the Dodgers were coming off the hands of a sweep against a sub-500 Angels team. The Padres were a game up on them for first place. Everything seemed to be going the Padres' way. And then the Dodgers not only swept the Padres at Chavez Ravine, but they led for 25 of the 27 innings. The Padres at no point had control of any game in that series. Now the scene shifts to Petco Park. The Dodgers split against the Rockies in a series that, frankly, once again, they didn't look great for most of it. The Padres are coming off 3 straight wins against the Giants. So again, the Padres are coming in looking better than the Dodgers, but we know when these two teams meet, you can kind of throw that out. What are you going to be watching for this series from the Dodgers' perspective?
I need to continue to see good, clean, consistent baseball. That has been the story of maybe not the entirety of the season because they were very good for a stretch up until about July, where everything sort of started cratering. I think since July 1st, they are 20 and 23. And yeah, it's just not a clean brand of baseball. Secure a baseball, move a baseball forward. We know it's a team that loves to show out for power, and you could tell looking at the homer numbers versus the Padres numbers, where very clearly slug, as we talked about last week when you joined us on Dodgers Territory, slug's not a massive part of the Padres game. It doesn't need to be every part of the Dodger game. I need to see a consistent brand of baseball, and ideally, Teoscar Hernandez in right field securing a baseball, and Michael Conforto literally doing anything to move a baseball forward in a positive manner for this team. If you could do that, and obviously Mookie Betts has been doing very well of late, I think the Dodgers have a pretty good chance, even in the different kind of environment you get out of Petco Park these days.
Yeah, and that different kind of environment is something that I want to highlight from the Padres' perspective as the main thing to watch. The Padres are 41 and 21 at Petco Park this year. And just to put that in perspective, that's a better home record than the Dodgers have at Chavez Ravine. That's a better home record than the Phillies have at Citizens Bank Park. At home, the Padres are one of the best teams in baseball. They are right there with the elite of the elite.
Yep.
Now on the road, they're 31 and 35. They are a sub 500 team. So you get two completely different teams, two completely different calibers of baseball when the Padres are at home versus when they're on the road. Now the Dodgers did take 3 or 4 from the Padres at Petco the last time they played, but the Padres were a very different team then. They didn't have a lot of their starting pitchers back. They have since loaded up and replaced a third of their starting lineup at the deadline. So I don't know how much that really carries over, but I think this is going to be key for the Padres because, look, if they can't take care of the Dodgers at home, that's really going to be the red flag of, hey, maybe this just isn't quite the World Series caliber team that a lot of Padres fans hope they are. And I think a lot of Padres fans, when they watch them at home, they go to games at Petco Park, they say, man, we look like we could beat everyone because they do beat mostly everyone. But then when you see them on the road, they're just not the same caliber. So this is one of those scenarios for me where this is going to be a little bit of a prove it series for the Padres because this is where everything is lined up for them to at least win a series against the Dodgers, which they have not done all year. And if they can't do it this time around, it's going to be really, really hard to say with any confidence, oh yeah, they can totally win the division, or oh yeah, they can totally have a deep playoff run and get past the Dodgers to do it.
Yeah, I would kind of wonder and venture to ask you about this, covering the team as closely as you do. It feels to me like there could be a point where relying on Petco and that extra edge playing for the home faithful there. It seems like it could hit a point where it tips the scales the other way, where now they're trying. I don't want to say trying too hard, because obviously the Padres are trying. Every team's trying to win game, but they kind of, like they're trying too hard to win that day's headline, or however, a better way to say it. If I had got through more of my coffee before starting the show, I'd have the best words to be talking about it. But would you say there's something to that where they can kind of get in their own way and try to be like, yeah, let's go, boys, in front of the home crowd?
No, that's not the makeup of this team. And there are certainly some teams that do that. But this is a Padres team, in large part because of their leadership with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr., that rides the emotional wave. When the lights are brightest, that's actually when they perform their best. The issue is sometimes those Tuesday games on the road at Cincinnati, they don't always show up and have the best focus, engagement, and energy. Now, I will say that has gotten much better the last 2 years under Mike Schilt. That was a real problem under Bob Melvin, Jace Tingler, also Andy Green, but some of that was a talent issue as well. So I think for the Padres, that's not really the concern here. The concern would be, are they going to get the kind of production from their stars that they need? And that leads me into, I think, the biggest key for this series for the Padres, not just the fact, hey, they're playing at home, but they need to get better outings from their starting pitchers than we saw last week at Petco Park. Again, Friday, Michael King gets hurt. You have to throw out an opener and a bullpen game. It is what it is. But Dylan Cease and Yu Darvish combined for 7 1/3 innings in their 2 starts at Dodger Stadium last week. Yeah. We saw Dylan Cease give up 5 runs in the first 2 innings, had 0 fastball command. Yu Darvish gave up a 4 spot in the first inning, including 2 homers. Darvish goes in the series opener tonight. And for the Padres, they have to get more length from their starters. It's going to be Yu Darvish on Friday, Nestor Cortez on Saturday, each of whom has struggled to give the Padres length. And Nick Pivetta on Sunday, who you feel great about, being able to deliver 6, 7. But I think these first 2 games for the Padres, if Darvish and Cortez only go 3, 4 innings again, they're going to be in trouble. I think that right there will be the single biggest determinant of the Padres' success this week.
And for the Dodgers, obviously, that is the game. Try to knock the starting pitcher out early. They were able to do it last week. And, you look at some of the ERAs, if you're just being lazy and looking at, the matchups this weekend, you're looking at Yu Darvish, who's got an ERA, north of 4, north of 5. And then, Nestor Cortez, I think he deserves a World Series ring last year just for his performance against Freddie Freeman. You feel, as a Dodgers fan, I feel pretty good about those first couple of games. Nick Pivetta has been phenomenal signing for AJ Preller, who always finds a way to get those kind of diamonds in the rough back end of the rotation starters during the offseason. But yeah, that needs to be the game for the Dodgers. Take advantage of the starting pitching. Dodgers are rolling out Snell. They're rolling out Yamamoto in the series on Sunday, and then you got Tyler Glasnow, who you really need a good outing out of, because this is like, Dodgers fans haven't seen a whole lot of Tyler Glasnow over the his 2 years because of injury, missed the postseason last year. So this is going to be as close as we see him being kind of in a playoff setting, outside of beating him in the 2020 World Series, where, let's be fair, there wasn't a full stadium of fans. So there's a lot, besides the division, there's a lot on the table here, I feel, for Dodgers fans to really watch and sink their teeth into about the next, 2 months, really, of baseball and how it could work out for them.
Yeah, we saw Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow pitch very, very well against the Padres. Last weekend, Yoshinobu Yamamoto has been one of the best pitchers all year. So the Padres offense will have its work cut out for it. But Clint, I want to pivot back to Yu Darvish real quick. He is going to be the focus of this week's DraftKings Player Spotlight. All right, Clint, you brought up Yu Darvish and his struggles for the Padres since coming off the injured list. He went down with elbow inflammation in spring training. Originally, the timeline was he'd be back hopefully sometime late May, early June. It ended up being late July. Since he's come off the injured list, he has not been the typical Yu Darvish that Padres fans and really Major League Baseball has become accustomed to. In 8 starts since coming off the injured list, Yu Darvish has a 5.97 ERA. Now, his last 4 starts in aggregate have been better than his first 4 starts. So you are seeing some progress. That said, we've seen a lot of inconsistency recently. We talked about against the Dodgers last week. 4 innings, gave up 4 runs in the first, including 2 homers. And not only 2 homers, but 2 homers when he was hit 0-2 in the count. Couldn't finish hitters, wasn't sharp. Before that, 6 quality innings. Start before that, only got through 4. Start before that, 7 scoreless. So he's still rounding into form a little bit. For the Padres to get where they want to go, they need the best version of Yu Darvish on the mound. And really, that starts this weekend in this pivotal series. Going into tonight, the Padres are one game back of the Dodgers. Yu Darvish has a chance to pitch the Padres into a share of first place, but it's on him to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, as a Dodger fan, obviously I've seen Yu Darvish be at his best as long as the Astros aren't cheating and things sort of fall apart for him. But better part of a decade as a big leaguer, he has been very good. He has been that dude. More so, he has that mound presence, the dude you want on the mound to be a stopper. Can't hide the fact that he's 38 now and still for some reason has like 4 more years under contract. Very weird deal there. But I agree with that. Like, I think the Padres' success quite literally this weekend hinges on Darvish rounding into form and pulling up his numbers here. 6 ERA. I was off by a couple of points there on the ERA.
5.97. That hasn't been great.
That's not the Yu Darvish that baseball fans know and love. And listen, as much as I want the Dodgers to win, I also want Yu Darvish to be good at his job. He is fun to watch when he throws the kitchen sink and everything under it at a team. So, I hope he actually figures it out in his next start. But he still is somebody that absolutely the Padres need to get going if they have any shot of taming the dragon one more time, or slaying the dragon, if you will.
Absolutely. I want to go back to your point about Yu Darvish in 2017. In a lot of ways, Yu Darvish's legacy is pretty secure. He is the most successful Japanese pitcher to ever come over to Major League Baseball. Pick whatever statistic you want, the longevity, the wins, the ERA, the strikeouts. And there have been a lot of fantastic Japanese pitchers who have come over, many of them Dodgers, of course, starting with Hideo Nomo all the way through. Yu Darvish really is number one, and I think his impact on Major League Baseball for over a decade now cannot be understated. Just how good he's been pitching at a number 1 or 2 level for a decade. Very few pitchers have been able to do that over the course of their careers. In 2017, the Dodgers acquired him from the Texas Rangers at the trade deadline. And he has sort of a complicated history with the Dodgers because on the one hand, he was fantastic for them in 9 starts down the stretch, was dominant in his NLDS start, was dominant in his NLCS start. There is a very real argument to be made. The Dodgers do not get to the World Series without Yu Darvish in 2017, given the state of their starting rotation at the time. But we know that in the World Series, he imploded not once, but twice against the Astros, including Game 7, which was at home. And again, the Astros, it's established they're absolutely cheating, but the available evidence suggests it was only at Minute Maid Park. They did not have the technology available to them to do so on the road. And with that, it does kind of hang on Yu Darvish, his failures in the World Series at Dodger Stadium in the biggest moments in 2017. How is he viewed from your perspective, both as someone who has covered this team for a while and who in a lot of ways, is representative of the Dodger fan base as a whole?
It's an interesting roller coaster that fans, and in this case, I'll focus just on myself. The relationship we have, or I have, with Yu Darvish, because coming out of that World Series, it's all pitchforks and torches. You're like, man, this guy absolutely screwed us over. Andre Ethier should have had himself a World Series ring, all that kind of stuff. And then you start to hear about trash can banging and the cheating and code breaker and all of this stuff coming out of Houston, and they're still playing baseball freely. No reprimand for them. And some of Yu's kind of statements and things that he said and tweeted after the fact, I think there's a lot more warmth towards Yu Darvish than the animosity or the letdown that came out of the end of his immediate tenure. I mean, heading into that World Series, we're talking about, like, this is a guy they need to re-sign him. They need to bring him back for the next 10 years because he was just so good in Dodger Blue. And then just how everything kind of cratered from there. But it did reach a point where it's like, we all got screwed over together. Come on, you're one of our dogs, man. Let's go. Let's still cry about this and be mad about this together. So that's a kind of a long way around to saying things are good, things are okay, and we feel better when we still beat him, especially when he's in a Padres uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to note too that Yu Darvish's postseason performance, aside from that World Series, has been really, really, really good for quite a long time. So I think you can definitely look at that World Series and say it's an outlier. Any narratives about him not performing in big games, or, we saw some stuff about people saying things like, oh, he's not, mentally tough enough. Like, none of that has actually borne out in truth. He has been very, very, very productive in the postseason for many years now. And I think it's important to really remember what he's capable of and the quality of pitcher he is. With that, Clint, Yu Darvish is going to be the subject of one of our DK pick sixes tonight. He is at He is at 4.5 strikeouts for tonight's game. We've talked about his struggles, but even with that, his last 4 starts, he has had at least 5 strikeouts, including last week where he struggled against the Dodgers. So I'm going to take the over on that for Yu Darvish. The other over I'm going to take, Fernando Tatis Jr., who has been the subject of a lot of frustration amongst Padres fans this year, and who Dodger fans have a lot of animosity towards for a lot of reasons. He's been hitting very, very well recently, multi-hit games, really throughout the last week. I'm going to go the over for him on, 0.5 hits as well. Those would be 2 picks from the Padres perspective.
Right on. Do you need a couple picks from me? Is that what we're doing?
Well, I was going to say, what do you think? What do you think the likelihood of those are?
I feel honestly pretty good about cashing the over on both of those. Obviously, when he's on, it gets a lot of strikeouts. The Dodgers can, been known to strike out a time or two. Shohei Ohtani back in the lineup. It's been boom or bust at different times. I think that's a pretty good number. You said 4.5 there. And listen, Manny's going to be Manny against the Dodgers. He feels like he's due for a big knock. So to say,
Tatis was my pick.
Tatis, sorry.
Yeah.
That's another guy I would say is due then for this team as well, because he didn't have the greatest of series, and I think he's got a little bit to prove against this Dodgers team, because feels like he hasn't done very much since hitting that grand slam off of Walker Buehler.
No question about it. We will see what happens tonight if Darvish and Tatis can get things going against the Dodgers. Once again, this has been our DK Pick 6. I encourage everyone to go over to DraftKings, check it out. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you are in the mix for big cash prizes. No gimmicks, no weird rules, and get this. All new Pick 6 customers will instantly get $50 in bonus picks on just a $5 entry. Go ahead and download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL. New customers play $5 and get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Ride the upside where a few bucks can turn into a bag. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. 8/24/25 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, Clint, moving into the big picture here, the Dodgers enter 1 game up on the Padres. This is the final time these 2 teams will meet in the regular season, this 3-game series. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Do you think this series and who wins the series will determine who wins the division?
If the Dodgers didn't sweep last week, you know what? Yeah, I don't know. I really struggle with this, because it's real easy to say, like, if the Dodgers sweep, they exit with a 4-game advantage, and that seems pretty, I don't know if it's insurmountable, but at least they control their own destiny. And you hope with them getting some quality players back from the injured list this weekend and into next week, they're just going to start playing a better brand of baseball to help them control their own destiny. That said, I have a hard time counting the Padres out of anything. So I don't think anymore. If the Dodgers played better against the Rockies, it would be different. If they won 1 more game, it would be different. I don't think anymore the NOS is completely run through this particular series. Now, whoever comes out, on top, if one side sweeps, then it's a little bit different for sure. But I think there's still a lot of baseball, a lot of meaningful baseball to be played through the month of September. Thankfully for both teams and for baseball.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to say that anything will be decided and won by August 26th when you're talking about, no matter which way this series goes, the biggest differential that could possibly happen would be a 4-game, advantage for the Dodgers. Any other scenario, looking at 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, and we know that that's not insurmountable. Heck, we just saw the Dodgers blow a 9-game lead in the span of 6 weeks. So anything's possible. And I think you hit on an important point there. The Dodgers are doing something this year the Padres used to do, which is play up and down to the level of their competition. The Dodgers have lost a lot of games and a lot of series that you're like, how on earth did that happen? Getting swept by the Angels over the course of the season. But then they're 8-2 against the Padres. So I'll be curious to see coming out of this series, if the Dodgers win it and they get an edge, if they're able to maintain it, if they're able to play up to the level of competition and do what they should do as opposed to playing down all the time. And from the Padres perspective, there's no question. This could give them some momentum. And I will say one advantage the Padres have, their September schedule is so light.
That's literally what I was looking at right now. Dodgers is pretty light itself. You know, they play the Giants like 7 more times or 6 more times. You know, the Giants are going to play them pretty strongly. But yeah, that schedule for the Padres, that looks pretty dang simple. Simple.
Yeah, realistically for the Padres, the only series in there that even gives you a little bit of pause in September is 3 games against the Brewers. But those 3 games come at home, and it's the second to last series of the season when the Brewers might be so far ahead of everyone else in the NL Central that they're coasting, that they're, resting half their starters, that they're not really actually going out and trying to win to the same degree they have been. You're right. The Dodgers schedule as well is not super intense, but you have 7 games against the Giants. You know they're going to get up for that rivalry. You do have 3 games against the Phillies, who probably will be in a fight for the NL East at that point. And you finish with 3 games at the Mariners, who theoretically should be in a dogfight with the Astros for the AL West title. So I do think the Padres will have an easier schedule than the Dodgers. So if the Padres can come out of this series up a couple games, given their September schedule, I do think it will put them in good position. I'm not going to say, oh, they're definitely going to win the division if they win this series. But I will say the Padres certainly have a really good opportunity if they pull ahead to then lock it up in September.
Yeah, final thing I'll say about that, the 2 series outside of the Brewers, 2 other series you watch for the Padres in September. Reds are obviously fighting for that 3rd wild card spot. Same with the Mets. Those 2 are battling. So Dodgers see the Reds starting Monday, I think it is, or Tuesday in LA. Those are going to be, honestly, that Red series for San Diego might be where the NL West is kind of won or lost, because that same time Dodgers welcome the Rockies to LA, and they usually play the Rockies very well in Los Angeles. So this series, though, will not determine the National League West winner.
I agree with that. I will say the Padres are a better team than the Reds, and they're at home, so that's why I don't consider that series too big of a challenge. I also don't think the Mets are very good. This was a team that had some starting pitchers performing over their ability levels early in the season. I remember I was on Mad Dog Sports Radio talking about this, where I said, this is when the Mets had the best record in baseball. They were 48-24. And I said, yeah, they're playing well, give them credit, but their starting pitching, these guys are very injury prone. They're not going to hold up. David Peterson's been great to his credit. Kodai Senga, when he's healthy, is good, but I just don't think this is a team that's actually all that good. I think they were in over their heads early, and I think a lot of people still look at them that way. So that's why I'm not that concerned about that series. That said, I do expect Padres-Dodgers to be tight to the finish, and I'll wrap up with this. Give me your prediction right now. How many games will separate the division winner from the second-place team between the Dodgers and Padres at the end of this year?
I said that like 2 weeks ago. I had a prediction. I'm going to try to stick with it. I believe I said 2 games. I said somebody asked me on Twitter. I said 2 games is going to ultimately make or break that's going to be the differential when it comes to the NL West. Dodgers on top.
That's the number I had in my head as well. I think it'll be 1 or 2. I'm leaning 2. But the one other thing to consider here, the Dodgers have already clinched the season series against the Padres, regardless of what happens this weekend. The Dodgers are 8-2. Even if the Padres sweep, the Dodgers will be 8-5. And that head-to-head tiebreaker goes a long way toward determining, of course, the division champion, which, of course, determines who they face in the first round, or if maybe someone is able to skip the wild card round entirely. That's a really important distinction the Dodgers have here. So, again, I think it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to be a great finish, and we're going to see what happens this weekend. I do want to ask real quick, going back to the series here, we talked about the Padres pitching versus the Dodgers offense. The Dodgers pitching versus the Padres offense, I think, is the other matchup we have to talk about, just because the Dodgers pitching was so dominant against the Padres last weekend. Clayton Kershaw looked like vintage Clayton Kershaw. Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow, again, were excellent as well. And again, you're getting Snell, Glasnow, and Yamamoto, three pitchers who, when they're right, are among the best pitchers in baseball. The Padres offense is starting to find its power. They raked against the Giants, but that was also true last week. And then they went into Dodger Stadium and couldn't do anything. What are you going to be watching for from the Dodgers starting pitchers, especially just given they've shown they can go deep against the Padres, and the Dodgers bullpen is starting to get a little bit healthier?
Yeah, I mean, healthier for sure this weekend because you're getting Tanner Scott back today. So that's a huge boost. And then they get Kirby Yates back on Saturday, which some fans are a little more iffy about. Who comes out of the bullpen? Edgardo Henriquez has been very good. But to the question, you need to see these guys being somewhere in the zone. You can't have a wild Blake Snell out there, because if you have to go to the bullpen early. Luckily, they still have Justin Wrobleski in the bullpen who could help offset an unexpected kind of early night or whatever. But listen, Blake Snell, dude has taken most of the season off with injury. He hasn't taken it off. Obviously, he was hurt.
Yeah.
But this is your time to prove why they gave you all of that money. Got to go out there. You got to be that frontline ace dude and set the stage for the rest of these guys to kind of go out there and give it the bare minimum 5 innings, which was what we saw Glasnow do last week. That's what you need to do. You for bare minimum 5, get into 6. You can get into 7 and save some bullpen. Dodgers unexpectedly had to use Alex Vesia yesterday. And he blew 25 pitches. I'm assuming he's done today. But keep your bullpen as healthy and as try not to overexpose it to this team, because we know how good the Padres can do, more visibility they get against some of these guys. But the long way around, just find the strike zone and stay in the game as long as you can, and then be happy at the end of it after winning 4 games, and you have a happy flight or happy bus ride home to LA.
Yeah, one thing for the Padres that's going to be key to watch is if Mike Schilt does what he should do and starts Ryan O'Hearn and Gavin Sheets against Blake Snell on Saturday. We saw him sit Ryan O'Hearn 3 times in 4 games, all facing lefties, and the Padres offense suffered because of it. And Ryan O'Hearn has an 880 OPS against lefties. There's no reason to sit him. Gavin Sheets has been a platoon guy most of his career, but he's actually hit 275 against lefties this year. For the most part, when those 2 guys are in the lineup, the Padres just have so much more thump. And realistically, with Jackson Merrill out, that needs to be, the standard, is those 2 guys are in the lineup every day. None of this Bryce Johnson's going to start over Gavin Sheets because we're facing a lefty. That just can't happen. So we will see if Mike Schilt and the Padres make that adjustment and do things differently with their lineup this week than they did last week. Hopefully that will yield better outcomes for the Padres. All right, Clint, there's one more thing we have to talk about, and that is realignment. It's a hot topic in baseball this week. We're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then discuss how realignment could affect both the Padres and Dodgers long term.
FT fam, when you're playing in games, you kind of have some stress, anxiety. Teammates need something to help. Now it's at your fingertips with Rula.
That's right. Telehealth has been a huge help for millions of people, but it can be time-consuming and expensive to find the right therapist. Rula is on a mission to make this process smoother. And make sure you go to rula.com/Val for more details. They take most major insurance plans, and the average copay is only about $15 per session. Every provider on Rula is carefully vetted and chosen for their expertise. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to rula.com/Val to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please say that FT sent you there to support the show, but also worry about yourself here at rula.com, rula.com/FOUL, and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares.
All right, Clint, realignment has been a hot topic across baseball this week. And just because I was a full-time professional sports writer for over a decade, I spend way too much time thinking about this stuff anyway. So I'd already had on my phone different versions of realignment over the years that I thought would make sense or be interesting. But now that it's a real possibility, I want to talk through how it could affect both the Padres and Dodgers. So here's a look at a proposed National League realignment. And the way that this would shake out is you keep a lot of teams within their various time zones, which is important, while maintaining a lot of the historic rivalries. So NL West would be Diamondbacks, Dodgers, Padres, Giants. NL South, Braves, a national expansion team, Marlins, Rays, moving from the AL to the NL. NL North, Cubs, Reds, Cardinals, Brewers. NL East, Mets, Phillies, Pirates, Nationals. Again, this maintains Dodgers, Giants in the West. It maintains Cubs, Cardinals rivalry as well. What I think this would do to the Padres and Dodgers is it would actually make life a little more difficult because they no longer have the Rockies to beat up on. We'll get to the AL in a minute, but with this, the Rockies would move to the American League, and all of a sudden, when your division is just Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks and Giants, whatever their struggles this year, these are competitive franchises. The Giants had the most wins in baseball within the last 5 years. The Diamondbacks won the World Series within the last 5 years. These are not two teams that are perennially terrible. They're going to be competitive more often than not over the course of a 5-10 year span. I do think that realignment for the Padres and Dodgers would be unfavorable, just in the sense of I think life would get a lot more difficult in their division.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Admittedly, I haven't taken the full dive into the realignment stuff just because I'm like, let me get through a season first and then kind of start figuring this stuff out. But yeah, I mean, having those Rockies, not there to kind of be the whipping boy, I think that does affect a lot of these or all of the teams in the NL West. At the same time, to not have to go to Coors Field, which beautiful ballpark. I hate my team going there. I just really hate seeing that place. I feel better about that aspect of it. But the expansion part of this is where it still gets me because you have so many, and this is jumping the shark into something else, but you still have so many, MLB owners that don't want to pony up and spend on free agency. How are, in your case, you have a Portland team and a Nashville team. I don't know if those are the ones that are actually being proposed or if there's a few different spots that are being proposed, but how are these places going to get money when you don't have the Rockies actually spending any money on anything? Or, the Brewers are good and they barely want to put anything out there. Yeah, the Pirates have, arguably the best pitcher in baseball right now with Paul Skeens. They don't want to invest in their roster. This is where I was like, I'm the type of dude, I would rather get my engine working right before I start putting, a side skirt and a, spoiler on the back of my car or something like that. Now I'm going into mechanics, so that's
well, no, it's interesting you mentioned that because this is what I think is probably the easiest and simplest thing for Major League Baseball to do. I'm going to bring this back up, but what would be the right thing to do is actually this. The Rays currently have in the NL South, relocate them to Montreal. I don't think people realize Montreal is the largest city in North America the largest city in the US and Canada that does not have a Major League Baseball team. There's 2.5 million people in that metro area. It is a massive, massive city with an established fan base that wants baseball to come back. The stadium's an issue, but the same is true in Tampa Bay, and they don't have fans. Montreal, there's no question, it would be a much more successful market and franchise than Tampa Bay. So what I would do here, move the Cardinals into the NL South, then you move the Rays over into the NL East and the Pirates into the NL North, and relocate the Rays to Montreal. So the NL East now would be the Mets, Phillies, Nationals, and Montreal Expos. South would be Braves, Nashville, St. Louis, Miami. The North would be Cubs, Reds, Brewers, Pirates. I actually think realistically, Major League Baseball's long-term business outlook would look a lot better if they just moved the Rays to Montreal and did that. And that actually leads me into the American League portion of this as well, where the AL West, what I did right now is Vegas, Angels, Portland expansion, and Seattle Mariners.
Yeah.
We know that Portland, which again is a much larger city and metro area than Salt Lake, that's why I went Portland. They did not support baseball when it was there as a minor league, establishment. I have a hard time seeing that city really supporting an expansion franchise and building up the fan base. What Major League Baseball should do, they're not going to, but what they should do is actually purchase the A's from John Fisher, similar to what they did with the Expos and Jeffrey Loria, put them back in Oakland where there's an established fan base, and find a new owner that can get a stadium done, a more competent owner who can actually negotiate with the city. And then Fisher uses the proceeds from his sale of the A's to pay the expansion fee franchise, and you give him a new franchise in Vegas. It's not quite exactly what MLB did with the Expos back in the early 2000s, but same concept. MLB bought the Expos from Jeffrey Loria. Loria used the proceeds to go to Marlins. MLB took control, moved the Expos to DC, and then sold it to the Lerners, found a new owner. I do think it would actually be best for Major League Baseball to have an AL West of Seattle, the Angels, the Oakland Athletics, and a Las Vegas expansion team. That way you're only trying to build one fan base from scratch in Vegas as opposed to two, Vegas and Portland.
Hey man, I love this idea because listen, I'm an old school dude. I don't like a lot of change. To give baseball the Oakland Athletics back and to more so bring back the Montreal Expos, chef's kiss. You're hired. You're hired. That's what I got. I think it makes a lot of sense. And to get, at least John Fisher's grubby claws off of an icon, a historic team, I'm in. Let's get Rob Manfred on the phone right now. We fix this. Well, you fix it. I'm just going to take some of the credit.
Yeah, and again, too, I think it's a situation where it's not just about, old school and classics. It's actually what makes best business sense. Again, trying to build two new franchises, fan bases simultaneously in Vegas and Portland is going to be a lot more difficult than just building one. The A's have an established fan base. And let's be clear, when the A's have been winning, they drew 2 million fans. They filled up the Oakland Coliseum with the largest crowd for a wild card game in history.
Yeah.
A's fans exist and they will show up. The Rays, on the other hand, they have not had 2 million fans this season since their inaugural year in 1998. When they've been competitive, fans still don't show up. That's why the Rays make a lot more sense to move. There's just not that established fan base like there is in Oakland. So we will see. But again, Montreal being a much larger market than Tampa Bay, the A's, of course, having that established franchise and fan base, it just makes better business sense. So not that I don't expect any calls from Major League Baseball, but I do think this would be the best possible scenario. And again, it doesn't change things for the Padres and Dodgers. Life would still get more difficult in the NL West, but it also is fun having more competitive games as opposed to 21-0 wins, although those are kind of fun too. So you never know.
Yeah, I mean, again, the important thing is I care less about us. I care about the baseball side of it, man. And I love the idea of Montreal getting their team back in that particular scenario. I'm just going to keep harping on that one. They are clamoring for that organization to be back. And, of course, Oakland makes a lot of sense as well. But it's a smart idea. So they ain't listening. MLB is not listening.
Hey, the NBA paid off. There you go. Major League Baseball expansion. That's where it's coming in handy here. So, Clint, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me. Any final thoughts here on Padres Dodgers as we wrap up?
No, like I've said before, I'll say it again. It's always great talking Dodger baseball with you, just talking baseball in general. I hope we get a good, clean series for both sides this weekend. I'm sure people are going to be watching some high and tight fastballs to Nando. I would tell him maybe just back like a quarter inch up off the plate because your hands are over the plate. This is why you get hit. But I would not be expected or surprised to see some fireworks, but I'm hoping it's just baseball. Just play baseball. That's what I want to see.
There is always a tense moment or two between these two teams whenever they meet, but I do think we will not see anyone do anything stupid or get into a beanball war. Not when you're this late in the season. One game is separating you. The division's on the line. I don't think anyone's going to do anything stupid to get themselves suspended. But yes, there's always a tense moment or two in this series, and we will see what happens. Clint, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate your expertise and insight. As always, my friend.
Take it easy. Appreciate you, man.
All right, everyone, that'll do it for another edition of Friar Territory. Go ahead and give us a review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever platform you're watching, listening on. We'd love to hear from you. Hit that subscribe button, that like button helps us out big time. Do the same for Clint and Alana over at Dodgers Territory. Again, even if you're not a Dodgers fan, it's great competitive intelligence. I highly encourage it all around. For Clint Pasillas, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you to wrap up the series.